Hey guys, and welcome to Kids Church Mobile. It is a beautiful Monday. I want to remind you about our September slime drawing. Slimy September. This stuff is so cool. Metallic gold. By the time you get it, I will have played with it all month. But it's so cool and satisfying. So yeah, September will be, the first Wednesday in September will be our drawing for Slimy September. And I already showed you some of the Pop-Tarts. Your cry for Pop-Tarts has been heard. Nobody asked for this, but do you guys like those big old dill pickles? I figured that kind of goes under slimy. So we're going to do Slimy September. We'll also include a slimy but very yummy dill pickle. So I just want to remind you to give me a call. Let me know you're watching today. The number is 352-789-4115. So you're going to want to give me a text and let me know that you are watching with us today. All right, we're going to get right into our story today because it's kind of a long one. And I want to get the whole thing in one day because it's just a really fun story. It's about, again, it's one of the people that's living in exile. They're not living in God's nation of Judah itself. And her name is, well, her name starts out as Hadassah, but it ends up being Esther. And it's a really cool story. So we're going to go ahead and get into the story of Esther. And she's probably known as one of the most beautiful women in the Bible. So go with me to page 489, and we're going to do some reading. All right, here we go. It's called A Pair of Queens. In the years since the Persians conquered Babylon, the Persian Empire has become the most powerful in all the world, reaching from India to Ethiopia. King Xerxes, and whenever there's X's, I make them sound kind of like Z's. King Xerxes now sits on the throne of Susa. To celebrate his greatness, he throws a party for his noblemen, a big, expensive, and long party. Now, for me as a parent, when I throw a birthday party and it goes for 3 hours, that's pretty long. But, yeah, wait till you hear how long this one is. The king has been entertaining high-ranking officials for, yeah, you're reading it right, 6 months now. How much longer will this feasting go on? The other guy says, until he thinks he has impressed all of his subjects with his wealth and power. Xerxes' huge party finally comes to an end. To celebrate, he throws another party. This one for his closest friends. After several days of drinking, which is a really bad idea, the king begins his boasting or bragging. You know, I'm not just the richest and the strongest. I also have the most beautiful wife in the empire. You don't believe me, do you? No, that's okay. I'll prove it to you. Send for Queen Vashti. Yeah, and the other guy's like, just you wait. She's stunning. And then look, the guy comes back. He's supposed to be bringing the queen. And he says, Your Highness, the queen refuses to come. Ooh, it's going to mess with his pride. What? So he meets with his workers. He's like, what are we going to do about this? He says, this is horrible. My wife doesn't obey my commands. My noblemen, you must help me. According to Persian law, what can I do to undo what she didn't do? After puzzling through the king's question, one of his advisors stands up and points out that the consequences are much worse than they realize. She has not just offended you, O king. She has brought disaster upon all the men in the kingdom. Once women hear that Queen Vashti has disobeyed you, they will start disobeying their own husbands. They'll do whatever they want. They might even talk to us. It'll be chaos. Now, if I understand the king rightly, and I think I do, then the king should do what I would do. King's like, blah, 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 which is, first, announce that Vashti is no longer the queen. Then search the countryside looking for the most beautiful, young, and quiet women in the land. You can pick out a new wife, a better wife. Then women will know not to talk back to their husbands and we'll have peace. Brilliant. He's so right. We'll make our women respect us. So the king banishes his queen and sends out a decree. Vashti is no longer the queen, and I think every man should be king in his own household. After his rage and the wine wears off, King Xerxes starts to miss Vashti. Then he remembers what she had done and what he had done. So you can see him kind of all depressed now. I don't have a beautiful queen anymore, and I can't bring Vashti back because I can't undo the law. And so the guy says, I know it will make you feel better. We'll bring you all the most beautiful women in the kingdom. You can pick your favorite to be the new queen, and the one you pick will be even more beautiful than Vashti. The shallow king agrees. Now, there is a Jewish man named Mordecai who works in the courts of the capital city of Susa. He has a cousin named Esther. Esther's parents died when she was very young, so Mordecai has raised her like his own daughter. Now that she's grown up, Esther is a beautiful woman and impresses everyone she meets. When all the beautiful women in the land are brought to the king's palace, Esther is among them. And I want you to think about it. It's kind of like she got kidnapped from her family and taken to the king. We have lots of kidnapping going on. Don't be afraid. You'll be treated well in the palace, but don't let anyone know that you're Jewish. Now, for some reason, Mordecai's like, I don't think it's a wise thing that people know that you're a Jew. A Jew just means like one of Abraham's descendants, the people of God. In the palace, the young women are brought before Haggai, the head servant in charge of making sure all the candidates are as beautiful as can be. You girls may have been pretty enough for the pig herder in your tiny town, but none of you is pretty enough for the king. At least not yet. Not until I've worked my magic. You won't even see the king until I polish your looks like a jeweler polishing a beautiful gemstone. First, we're going to take 6 months to treat your skin with the finest lotions and oils. King Xerxes can't stand the sight of pimples. Then we'll take another 6 months finding you exactly the right scent of perfume for you. We'll also teach you how to apply makeup to best show off your face. Then and only then will you get to see the king. At that point, if the king likes you and remembers your name, you will be our next queen. Now, if you look at that girl's face, she doesn't look like she's enjoying that perfume very much. But I must tell you, even after all my beauty treatments, the king has never remembered any of the candidates' names. In spite of his low opinion of the young women, Haggai is immediately charmed by Esther. You have grace and intelligence, like none of these other girls. I'm giving you 7 maids to attend you personally. You will have the best room in the palace. Meanwhile, Mordecai, which is her uncle but kind of like her adopted dad, has been worried about his adopted daughter. Every day he hangs around the outside walls of the harem, hoping to hear news of Esther. There he makes friends with the guards, who let him hang out near the women's section of the palace. Don't worry, everyone in the palace loves Esther. And the other guy says, you're a good father to check on her, but she is well taken care of. So just trying to encourage Mordecai. Finally, after 12 months of beauty treatments, Haggai thinks Esther is ready to be presented to the king. Is there anything you want to bring with you, Esther? Whatever you recommend, Haggai. I trust you. Sweet girl. Just be yourself with the king. Don't be nervous. Everyone in the palace is rooting for you. And then you can see him as he's thinking. He's like, if anyone can please the king and win his favor, it will be Esther. It's kind of cool how God gave her favor with everyone. The next day, Haggai is called before the throne. It's been 3 years, Haggai. 3 years of your beauty treatments and ho-hum village girls. In all that time, I haven't found anyone who could compare to Vashti. Your job is finished. Don't bother bringing me any more girls. Haggai's like, shoot. He's like, yes, your highness. Instead, bring me back that girl Esther to be my new queen. Whew, I know Haggai was, dodged a bullet on that one. Now our next story is called Persian Politics. For months, Esther, along with hundreds of beautiful women of Persia, has lived in the palace waiting for the king to choose one of them to be his wife. The king has finally made his choice. Esther, you are now my wife, queen of all Persia. I am honored, my lord. But Esther has kept her family a secret. She hasn't told anyone about her adopted father Mordecai, a Jewish city official. Late that night, Mordecai goes to the walls of the harem to check on Esther, the new queen. He says, I am so proud and happy for you, but remember, even though you're the queen, Don't let anyone know that you're Jewish. You know, I think God must have given him a heads up to be cautious about that. We'll find out why later. So Mordecai was looking to go see Esther, and on his way, he hears two men speaking. As he's leaving Esther's garden, Mordecai overhears two of the king's servants. See him over there talking? They don't know Mordecai's there. Our plan cannot fail. And the other guy says, no, by this time tomorrow, the king will be dead, and no one will know who killed him. Woo! Mordecai just happened upon an assassination plot. Mordecai quickly sends word of the plot to Esther. That very night, the king calls for her. Why do you look troubled, my lovely? It gives you wrinkles. She says, my king, two of your servants plan to assassinate you. So King Xerxes investigates and finds out that Esther's report is true. He has guards bring his traitorous servants before him. According to Persian law, what is the punishment for attempting to kill the king? And the guy says, death by impaling, sire. Good, do that. Now, my charming queen, how did you know about this plot? She says, Mordecai, one of your court officials, told me. He overheard Bigthana and Teresh talking. Who would name their kid Bigthana? Bigthana. I don't know. Anyway, okay, sorry. I was distracted. You hear that? Mordecai saved my life. You, scribe, write that down in the official book of records because I don't want to forget it. I should reward him somehow. Now, I want you to notice something. He's telling the scribe to write it down, and then he's going to forget about it. All right, but we'll at least get this far. Soon after this, the king needs to promote someone to be the new prime minister. Prime minister is a fancy word, kind of like a vice president, sort of, to him. So he finds this guy named Haman. Now, you're going to want to try to keep all these characters straight. Haman, I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. Haman is our bad guy. And the king just promoted him, kind of like to being vice president of the whole country. So nobody knows yet that he's bad. But the king just promoted him. Here we go. Haman, you will be above the princes of my court. People will bow to you like they do to me. And Haman says, you have honored me very much, my lord. Haman is very proud and enjoys having people in the city court bow before him. But Mordecai, Esther's uncle, the one who raised her like a dad, but Mordecai refuses to bow when Haman walks by. Who is that man that does not show proper respect for me? That's Mordecai, a Jew, and Jews will not bow to any man. All right, Mordecai, your day will come. You will pay for this, and so will every Jew in Persia. This is a bad dude right here. Haman goes home and casts lots, called Purim, to decide which day he will set for the Jews' punishment. Let's see what date and month I will exterminate you. So he kind of like rolls a dice kind of thing, and he picks the day. Aha! The 13th day of the month of Adar. Okay, so he picks a day and he's like, all right, on the 13th of the month of Adar, I'm going to exterminate all the Jews. Now, how do I make this happen? Angered because Mordecai will not bow before him, Haman prepares his revenge. But first he must trick his foolish king. Seems like there's a lot of tricking of kings, isn't there? My king, there's a race of people in your kingdom who do not obey you. For your safety, they should be destroyed. Give me permission to make a law that will get rid of them in Persia. And the king is like, oh, wow, I'm glad you brought this to my attention, Haman. Do what you need to do to protect me. Use my ring to seal the new law. Then everyone will know that your law is my law. Haman's law is quickly distributed throughout the kingdom of Persia. Look at this, what it says. Every Jew in Persia is to be destroyed on the 13th day of the 12th month. Anyone who kills the Jews may keep everything that belongs to the Jews they kill. That's some pretty high motivation for people to start being horrible to the Jews. And Haman is all about it. He's like, I'm not just going to kill Mordecai. I'm going to kill all the Jews. Let us celebrate your good decision. To my loyal prime minister. And Haman's like, Mwahaha. Now you can see the people reading the law, the edict that's been passed, and they're like, why would the king do this to us? We haven't done anything wrong. You can see all the Jews being like, we didn't do anything wrong. Why are you trying to kill us? All right, the next story is called If I Perish, I Perish. Page 498. When Mordecai hears the orders, he dresses in sackcloth and pours ashes over his head to show his grief. I don't know what the sackcloth and ashes are about, but we see them all the time when people are like mourning or grieving. They're sad or discouraged. All right. Then he visits Esther, who he hopes will be able to do something. What are you doing here in sackcloth? Don't you know it's against the law to show mourning in the king's palace? You could be killed. And Mordecai says, I am to be killed anyway, along with all of our people. And Esther's like, what? Why? He says, the king has passed a new law ordering that all Jews are to be killed. It must be Haman's doing. His people have hated our people ever since the time of King Saul. You must go to the king and ask him to spare the Jews. And she says, I should go see the king? The king has one rule about anyone who approaches him without being invited. Death. Unless he decides to hold out his scepter. And the king hasn't called me in a month. If I go to King Xerxes uninvited, I face the death penalty. And Mordecai says to her, if you don't go, your whole people face the death penalty. You can see her just being like, what am I going to do? And then Mordecai says to her, who knows? Maybe you have been put into this royal position for such a time like this. Today you must be more than a queen. You must be a Jew. And to save us, you must be more than a Jew. You must be a queen. So you can see the tears in Esther's eyes as she says, go, gather all the Jews in the city, fast and pray for me. Don't eat or drink for 3 days, and I will do the same. After 3 days, I will go to the king uninvited. And if I perish, I perish. Page 500, who will be hanged? Queen Esther breaks a law by appearing before the king without an invitation. She could be punished by death. But the lives of her people, the Jews, are in danger, and she is the only one who may be able to save them. You see the king thinking, Esther, I didn't invite her to come before me. But as Xerxes looks at his beautiful new queen, he decides he doesn't mind the intrusion. Whew. He holds out the scepter to show his forgiveness. What is it, my breathtaking beauty? What is your request? Even if you wanted half of my kingdom, I would give it to you. The moment has come when Esther can ask Xerxes to spare her people. I request that you and Haman come to a private party, just the 3 of us. A party with you? Absolutely. Find Haman now. Esther entertains the king and Haman in her own private garden, but she still doesn't tell Xerxes her real request. Instead, she invites him and Haman to come to another party tomorrow. Then she promises she'll tell him her true request. The king accepts, and so does Haman, who is overjoyed to be included. Haman leaves his monarch's presence in a great mood. The honor and the wine that has been given him make him very happy until he leaves the palace. Now you can look over there, you see Mordecai. Of course, Mordecai's not going to bow to him. You can see, oh, there he is. Does he still not fear how powerful I am? Will Mordecai bow to me? But as Haman walks by, Mordecai just watches him and stays seated. Mordecai, Haman. You can see Mordecai, you can see Haman thinking to himself, that stubborn Jew, he still won't give me honor. I cannot wait to punish him. Wahaha. At home, Haman boasts about his success to his wife. The king has given me great wealth and honor, and that's not all. The queen includes me in her private banquets. But none of that gives me satisfaction when I see that Jew Mordecai dishonor me. And his wife says, you know it will make you feel better, Haman. You should build a gallows tonight, which is like a place to hang people. Then, first thing in the morning, ask the king to have Mordecai hanged on it. Then you'll be able to enjoy your dinner with the queen. Wait until Mordecai sees what will happen to him tomorrow. Now, remember when Mordecai saved the king's life and the king had a guy write it down and then he forgot all about it? Get back to that thought. That same night, the king cannot sleep. Ugh, I'll have a servant read me the public records. That will put me to sleep. The scribe reads to the king until the early hours of the morning. When the reading reaches the story of Mordecai, the king interrupts. Stop, what reward did Mordecai receive for saving my life? And the scribe says, none, my lord. The king says, well, that's not good. I really ought to do something for him. At that moment, Haman enters the court to request Mordecai's hanging. So the king says to him, Haman, you're just the person I need to see. If I wanted to honor you for pleasing me, what would you prefer that I do? So Haman's like, he wants to honor me for pleasing him. So Haman says, well, I'd want to wear one of your robes and ride on your horse. Then have one of your nobles lead me through the city, telling everyone, the king respects this man. So the king's like, good idea. So he says, I knew you'd have a great suggestion. Get the robe, get the horse, do exactly what you said for that Jew, Mordecai, who works at my gates. I love this part. Mordecai, yes, sire. So, Haman was planning on hanging Mordecai, and instead, he's walking him through the city on the king's horse in the king's robe, saying, this is what the king does for the man who pleases him. Ooh, that had to be absolutely humiliating. Angry and humiliated, Haman is forced to perform for his enemy Mordecai the ceremony that he had planned for himself. The king respects this man. Oh my goodness. When he is finished, he barely has time to make it to the palace for his date with Esther and the king. He arrives in a foul mood. As delightful as these parties are, my luscious queen, you must have a different reason to seek me out. I promise to give you anything you ask for. And Esther says, my king, if you have any liking for me, save my life. That is my request. And spare the lives of my people. By the cruel plan of a certain man, we are to be put to death. And the king says, put you to death? Who would dare do such a thing? And she says, the wicked Haman. You're Jewish? The king's like, you want to murder my queen? The king storms out of the garden in a rage, and Haman realizes he has made a huge mistake. Please, when he comes back, tell the king to spare my life. And he's like pulling on her robe. But the king has already returned. And now you are attacking my queen in my own palace? Oh, he's mad now. Haman this is the worst day ever. Your Highness, Haman was intending to hang Mordecai, who saved your life. He has just built a gallows near his house. And the king's like, oh, what good timing. Hang Haman on that. Take him away. And he says, you shall have Haman's wealth because of the suffering he has caused you. And Esther says, my relative Mordecai has suffered too. He says, Mordecai is related to you? Then he has done me 2 favors. I'll put him in Haman's place, second in power in all of my kingdom. Kind of like the vice president. But Esther knows this is not enough. If I have pleased you, I beg you to take back the order Haman sent to kill all the Jews. The king says, I wish I could, but according to Persian law, no one, not even the king, can cancel an order that has been sealed with the king's ring. He says, but I can send out a new order. The order is written and rushed to governors throughout the empire. Listen, the king says the Jews may carry weapons to protect themselves, and that Mordecai, a Jew, has been made prime minister. The king is on the side of the Jews. We'd better be too. Maybe I should become Jewish. On the 13th day of the 12th month, the Jews throughout the Persian Empire gathered together to defend themselves. With the help of the king's governors, they are successful. And at the palace, Haman cast lots, Purim, to destroy us. But instead we have been saved from our enemy. I've written an order that every year all Jews must celebrate this day. There shall be much rejoicing and giving of gifts, and it will be called the Feast of Purim. Jewish people throughout the world still celebrate the Feast of Purim. And I know that was kind of a long story for today, but I just want to remind you that maybe God has put you right where you are today, the way he did Esther, because he knows that he wants to be able to use you right where you are. Pretty cool. So let's go ahead and close out today. I just want to remind you to text me at 352-789-4115. Let me know that you're watching today so I can get your name in the drawing. And our word for the day is trade. You know, like people trade baseball cards or trade games or whatever. Trade. All right, guys. Shoot me a text and let me know that you're watching. Happy Monday.